Okay, so I went on r/pixelart. I found a few things there that I think could use a little help, and today I'm just going to be fixing them up and talking through the process. And if you ever want me to do this with your pixel art, you can submit it to me on Twitter, which I will link below. So this squid has to be treated a little differently because it's a character for a game. So really, the main thing I'm going to do here is just remove all these doubled pixels. You pretty much never ever want these. I would just say as a general rule, you should just never have them, and then, you know, if you get good enough, then you can break the rule in a way where like they make sense, because here they're pretty much just randomly doubled and it just does not look good. I'm also just rounding out the edges here, but yeah, it's really easy to fix up, and just zooming out kind of just puts in perspective more what it would actually look like in whatever game this is for. I'm not really sure if this character is going to be animated or not, but if it is, I think it's set up pretty poorly. I've animated an octopus before, and you can't really just have the tentacles already in that position. You kind of need to put them in like the equivalent of a T-pose, because it just makes manipulating them significantly easier, especially if you're gonna have to do different animations like an idle and a walk and, you know, whatever else you might need for a game. I also do end up adding a little thicker outline just to add some 3D-ness and a little drop shadow too. But I really just do that to make it look better as an art piece. For a character, you would basically never ever want that, because it would just be an absolute nightmare for animating. Same with this outline I change here, where I add some color to it. You really wouldn't want that for something this large, because again, just for animating it would just be significantly harder, and it wouldn't add very much in the context of an actual game. So yeah, looking at the before and after here, you can tell that mine's obviously a lot better as like an art piece, but again, you really would not want this thicker border for animating purposes, same for the drop shadow. But yeah, I think the main things to take away from this one is to not double your pixels, and you know, tentacle arms are supposed to be like very smooth, very like slimy and slithery, and so when this tendril here is, you know, just like blocky like that, I don't know, like it almost looks like he's flexing or something, which I don't think is intended. So my first problem with this one is the fade to black at the bottom is really sudden, and it also doesn't look very Minecrafty. And I'm gonna fix that by taking that gray and just doing a gradient from gray to transparent, and I'm just gonna then dither that, and it should turn out nice. I think the sky actually has a lot of problems. I think it being just a flat color looks kind of bad and just makes it look really flat. And then the moon, I think the contrast on it's really weird and it doesn't look very glowy. And I think the stars are too bright and kind of like take your eye away from the scene. So it should be pretty easy to fix all that. So yeah, I'm adding a little color to the moon here. I think I can turn it into a focal point that will more blend with the image and kind of make you look around, instead of just being like a bright spot to lock your eyes onto and then never look away. And yeah, for these rings around the moon here, I'm just making a bigger circle and then erasing inside of it. And it's giving me a pretty nice structure where if I can just erase some of it randomly, it'll turn out nice, and it'll look more like it's emitting some sort of light. Which I know obviously the moon only reflects light, but for the sake of our artwork, it's pretty much the same thing. There's a couple things I do for this piece that are generally considered very bad pixel art practice, and that is using a blur and also using gradients. The thing is with breaking the rules is so long as you know them, you can break them effectively and just add to the piece here. So like these rings around the moon here, I used the Gaussian blur on, but they gave me the effect I was looking for and it was fast, and I mean it's pretty much perfect for the piece. I think that's just one really important art tip in general, is the better you know the rules, the more effectively you can break them. For the trees here, I'm kind of just making the shapes just make more sense and be more like actual trees. I know this is obviously meant to be for Minecraft, but because this is an artwork and not a screenshot, we can take some artistic liberties and kind of just do what makes it look better to someone who might not know this is Minecraft. So here I'm adding another layer of trees in the background. Generally with these, I try not to necessarily add to the composition, but just fix what's already there. But I think adding another layer of trees here is just going to make this so much better, because the way it is now, it just makes it look like this world is very shallow. It makes it look more like Terraria than it does Minecraft. And then again here, a little blasphemous, we're going to add a gradient just to make the trees kind of blend in together a little more. And then add a little rim of shadow over the top just so they stick out a little from the sky. For the roofs here, I'm going to completely redo them because I think the gradient they have for it right now looks really bad, and so I'm just going to add a more blocky look to it, and it's almost like a dithered effect, but it just looks so much better. And then now I'm just going onto all of the little edges and I'm adding white on a new layer. And then I'm just going to change it to be overlay, the overlay mode in the top right. And that will just allow me to lower the opacity, and I can make the edges brighter without having to select new colors, and it will work for anywhere we want it to, really. And a small thing I do here too is I make the side of the roof that's facing the torches a little brighter. It's just obviously more realistic, and I think it also just looks better to have a bright side and a dark side in a scene like this. And for the lights, I'm adding a bloom effect by just selecting the color and then duplicating that part of the layer. And then I'm just again adding a Gaussian blur. And usually the last part of any piece like this is just going through different color modes and sliders and just messing with stuff, and sometimes you can get something that looks really good and it's just like a really low effort last minute thing. That can sometimes give you a really good effect. So here's the Minecraft village before and after. I think this one turned out really good, especially I think this dithering down here to black I think just looks so much better than this, and it also still looks really Minecrafty. I ended up leaving the castle alone because I think it was fine, but yeah, I think the roofs turned out way better too, and just my moon blends in so much better with the scene, and it also sucks your attention away less than this one, even though mine's brighter. I think that's just because just the way I did the stars and the rings around it, I think it just blends in a lot better with my scene. And the extra layer of trees I didn't have to add, but I think that turned out really good too, and the shadow behind them. And just like the slight texturing of the dirt here, I think just also looks really good. So one of my problems with this one immediately is that the center pole here is lower than the left one, which I just think from this angle it doesn't really make sense without the context of seeing the ground. So I'm just going to raise it up a little so that, I don't know, it's a little less ambiguous about what's going on down there. And another thing too is these wires are just pretty poorly done. They just have like weird, really sharp angles that you would never see from a dangling wire like this. So I'm going to go ahead and fix those two things, and I'm definitely going to have to change some colors here too to make these stand out a little more. Another huge problem I have with this piece is the lack of atmospheric perspective on the balloons. Even if you did want them that dark, which they probably just shouldn't be, the ones that are smaller or like further in the background than the biggest one, those ones should at least be less dark. But I'm just going to make them all less dark overall. Usually the further things away are, the less contrast you want on them. So here they kind of just like suck your eyes onto them, and you just can't really look away because they're just so much darker than anything else. Also too, I think generally this piece is a little visually heavy on the left, so I'm gonna add another hot air balloon or two onto the right side, just subtly, just enough to kind of balance out the visual weight. For this sunset here, I don't think the colors are bad, but I do think they don't blend together well, so I'm just going to use a fanned out brush and kind of just blend them in together a little. Like I said with the Minecraft one, usually you don't really want to do that with pixel art, but I think here specifically it's going to look really good, and it's going to solve a lot of the problems with how it currently looks. For the mountain, I think right now it's just a pretty uninteresting shape, so I'm just going to make it flared on the top, just on both sides. I think it'll just make it a little more interesting looking. Especially for something like this where it's like a big silhouette that your eyes are drawn to, you really don't want it just being really flat and boring. And then down on the side here, I'm just adding another little thing just to add a little more visual weight and some more interesting shape. So I think this one actually turned out to be my favorite. I think the gradient just looks really nice across it, and the atmospheric perspective I think looks really nice, and the visual weight I think just was totally fixed, and just rearranging these a little, I don't know. And this is just such a more interesting shape. I just like this one a lot now. But yeah, thanks for watching. Send me your art on Twitter if you want me to do this with your own art, and yeah, that's it. Bye.